Ladies and gentlemen, your host for this evening, Jimmy Kimmel.
Welcome and congratulations. Welcome to the 95th Oscars. We made it. You made it. Congratulations. I know that being here tonight is a dream come true for most of the people in this room. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of it, especially this year when the world finally got out of the house to see the films you worked so hard to make the way you intended them to be seen in a theater. 5 Irish actors are nominated tonight, which means the odds of another fight on stage just went way up. We know this is a special night for you. We want you to have fun. We want you to feel safe. And most importantly, we want me to feel safe. So we have strict policies in place. If anyone in this theater commits an act of violence at any point during the show, you will be awarded the Oscar for Best Actor and permitted to give a 19-minute long speech. No, but seriously, the Academy has a crisis team in place. If anything unpredictable or violent happens during the ceremony, just do what you did last year. Nothing. Sit there and do absolutely nothing. Maybe even give the assailant a hug. And if any of you get mad at a joke and decide you want to come up here and get jiggy with it, you're going to have to go through my right-hand man, Guillermo, if you want to get up to this stage. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on, I should say the other Guillermo, not Del Toro. Yes, that one. Okay, there you go. There will be no nonsense tonight. We have no time for shenanigans. This is a celebration of everyone here. You told us you wanted all the categories back in, and we listened. So no complaining about how long the show is. I saw all your movies. Now it's my turn to make you sit in the theater for 3.5 hours.
Hello there, all you googly-eyed freedom fighters from an alternate universe, and welcome back to Spro and Lee Take on the Academy, the best and most esteemed podcast for Academy Award do-overs. I'm Lee.
I'm Spro, and we're here to rewrite Oscar history one gold man at a time. Joining us today is our friend, my driver to high school graduation, and if podcast hosts were like romantic relationships, he would be my first love, and hopefully not the one to get away. My co-host on Second Chance Cinema, the sympathetic, empathetic, emphatic, dynamic MC. What's up, dude?
Did you freestyle that or did you write that?
Absolutely not. No, I wrote that. If I freestyled it, there would be a whole lot of like emphatic, man.
No, I'm flattered because your writing is like gold. So I'm honored to be put into words by you, by your brain. What's up, guys?
Hey, man.
I don't know why I'm here, to be honest. I mean, I know the last time we talked about the Oscars, I had a take on the festivities and the entity that is the Academy Awards. But I'm certainly not the most educated when it comes to what you'll all discuss on here. So I'm ready to try and hang as best I can. Let's do it.
All right. Happy to have you back again, MC. It has been 8 days since the Oscars, and in that time, we're willing to bet you've gotten all the recaps that you need. So instead of taking you through each and every award and who won...
We're going to talk about some of them.
Okay, fine.
We need to talk about some of them.
Fine, okay. But not each and every. I think we should begin by acknowledging that the Oscars this year were D tier. Apart from a few shining moments, I was pretty bored.
MC, did you watch the Oscars this year?
I did not watch the Oscars, which you might have guessed, but I will say this. Spro, since you graciously invited me to your Oscar pool, after making my picks, and I made them quite a while before the actual event, but I found myself that night, long story short, I had driven something like 16 hours over the course of that weekend. I was just exhausted. But I found myself that night scrolling through my phone, refreshing results, almost as if it were fantasy football, to see if anyone I picked had won. So my interest was purely competitive, but it was there.
Nice. My family, were like, why doesn't Lee do the Oscar pool? Why does it MC? And why did I was like, MC's on there? MC's joined this year. So
did I
see
score,
that you joined the club.
I'm not sure if I read the spreadsheet right, but did I score the fewest points out of everyone?
You were not in last place. In last place, you were in third to last with 27 points.
All right. Well, hey, the only place to go is up.
Nice. Have you back again next year, and hopefully we can convince Lee to join on. So apart from like what Lee said, like I wish I could be as bored, I guess, because I said I started that Oscar pool so my family would be interested in the Oscars because I'm interested in the Oscars. I just wanted them to shut up so I could enjoy the Oscars. And this year I could tell that their interest in the pool and the Oscars is completely shot. Like during Jimmy Kimmel's opening monologue, they weren't even in the room. The lasagna had just come out of the oven. And so they all went to the kitchen and I was stuck in the living room with my nephew who was just he was like, who is that man? Like just asking questions. And then 3 hours in, there was a wall sit tournament going on. I could barely hear anything at all. Anything for this episode is purely because I went back and watched YouTube videos of it. And I think next year I'm going to seclude myself in a dark room with a non-alcoholic bottle of wine and pretend like I'm 10 again.
Nice. Like a sparkling white grape.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. With a little foil top. So I feel like an adult.
Well, I got to say, I don't blame your family. I was falling asleep again during this show. And I know you are very happy that the ratings went up, but I really couldn't give a Frenchman's fuck about the ratings because it was boring.
I actually think I liked it, though. Like, it went back to its classical roots. No DJ, no cringeworthy we're hip things, no Glenn Close doing the butt. The Academy tried to be what it wasn't for the past 2 years, and it did not work. So I prefer how this show looked and felt. Not to say, it was perfect, but I prefer this style of Academy Awards more so than what we were getting.
Watching people win is fun. Watching montages, not fun. Watching a hooray for Warner Brothers and a trailer for the live action Mermaid, not fun.
No, I agree with you. I do think the channel, ABC, and the Academy Awards are renegotiating their contract together. So at first I was like, what's with the Disney trailer? What's with Jimmy Kimmel as a host? And then realized it was just the parent companying it up.
Yeah, I read a headline that said Disney paid itself $10 million for the Little Mermaid spot. Yuck. What about the presenters, though? I mean, so many of that's an area where they can really beef it up. And so many of them, I think, seemed drugged. Pedro Pascal and Elizabeth Olsen were clearly having fun. But like Michael B. Jordan and Jonathan Majors, two guys who are always charismatic, it just felt so wooden.
Well, Jonathan Majors, I feel like he was nervous. That man was nervous. He didn't move from the original camera. Like Michael B. Jordan at least is finding the live camera. And Jonathan Majors was just standing there with his arms folded in front of him. But I think the presenters is where the Academy tried to be young and fresh. MC didn't watch the Oscars. I don't know if you knew that The Rock was at the Oscars presenting, but and I don't know how you would feel about The Rock being at the Oscars presented. But to me, I was like, why is The Rock at the Oscars dressed like a waiter in Miami?
I rewatched, I think, the bulk of the opening monologue, and it didn't make me bust up laughing and fall out of my chair, but I thought it was clever. I thought it was predictable. Of course, they're going to reference the things that they reference. But as far as Kimmel goes, and I want to preface by saying that when I say, like for the rest of this podcast, when I say, oh, I like this person and I like this person and I don't like this person, I'm talking about their work. I don't know any of these people personally. They may be very lovely human beings. I just may not be a fan of my journey with them. But I thought Kimmel was kind of a happy medium between someone like Ricky Gervais, who has he seems to pride himself in being like counter Hollywood or anti Hollywood. And he does it very expressively. Like he'll say something, it's clearly a dig at Hollywood or someone in the room. And then he says, oh, I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. And that's kind of like his shtick. And, he's a funny guy. I think he's a great writer, brilliant shows and stuff like that. And on the opposite side, the only one I could think of was Chris Rock from last year, where he was, overshadowed, obviously, by everything that happened, but also kind of like, I don't know, just not extraordinary. And Kimmel in the middle, he's got this like everyman kind of like schlubby delivery, which that's his character, and he does it very, very well. I thought it was hilarious when he came in on the parachute, and the jokes, again, like they had a year to write those jokes. And, whether or not they were the best jokes that got thrown up on the wall and then picked for his monologue, that's probably up for debate. But I thought it was a pretty pointed take on what happened last year and kind of taking the piss out of it in a way that didn't overshadow this year's show. And I don't know if that's a credit to him or the writers or both, but it was not my least favorite monologue of all time.
I thought it was funny, and I thought of you, Spro, when he mentioned what happened last year. If there should be an act of violence, just do what you did last year. Nothing nothing at all.
Yeah, the references to Will Smith and everything, I think, was very well handled. And I think, like, I wanted to be like, what is the over and under of Will Smith ever, like, the next time he appears on Jimmy Kimmel's show, like 5 years, you know, like, are they ever going to bury this hatchet? Because Kimmel went for him, you know? He even said something like, I hope this next award goes off without a hitch, or Hitch himself, or something like that. Like, he was just referencing Will Smith throughout the night, which, for whatever reason, that never got old for me. Like, a lot of shticks like kind of went too long. There was when Elizabeth Banks and the cocaine bear thing, and then the cocaine bear came back out.
As a lover of creature effects, that's the only reason. That bear looked awesome. It was a sight gag. It was a, you know, very one and done gag, but that bear looked phenomenal. I would not have bet on that at the Oscars. And that was, you know, you guys asked me the last time I was on, like, what could they do to get me to want to watch? More animal costumes would be a good start.
How about Muppets? How would you feel about more Muppets?
I would be more inclined to watch with a margin of Muppets. Yeah, an over-under of Muppets. I mean, sure, you know, stuff like that. But again, and you know what it was? It surprised me because from what I saw, from pictures, from the inescapable flood of social media and stuff the next day, this year's seemed more self-aware. And the things like the cocaine bear, Jimmy Kimmel coming in on the parachute, like it was almost as if this was like a classed up parents' version of the MTV Movie Awards that they used to do. Do they still do those with the popcorn and stuff? But like those things were silly. And, you know, in a room with like Meryl Streep and whoever else, like I wouldn't have expected a giant bear to show up. So in the name of unexpected and, you know, pretty low expectations, that was an awesome thing to see. It's just a good looking bear.
Well, because Lee thought it was boring and I actually liked it. I think the reason why you're here, MC, is you're a good buffer between us two.
Oh, all right. Yeah, I can get in the middle. I can referee this fight.
Well, I'm glad you're here. And I did have a question written out because I thought that you were going to watch this year, knowing a little bit more ahead of time that you were going to be on the post show.
No.
But that's so you that you didn't. I love it. You did make mention of a few things, and maybe we can touch on these. The white dress / hat lady. This woman is now infamous. She has just been pasted on the internet for that. And Spro was the first person to comment on it, and then you followed up. What do we think of that lady whose name I don't want to say and give her any more publicity?
On one hand, you know, you only YOLO once, and she went for it. And I don't know the significance of the hat. I don't know if it's a cultural thing. I don't know if it was designed to be outlandish strictly for the sake of being outlandish. But it's certainly not the weirdest outfit that Hollywood has ever produced at an award show, especially. I think the main thing that bugged me about it was that it was just kind of rude. I feel like it's a bad indication of her circle of friends and hangers-on that nobody said, hey, you know, there's probably going to be someone behind you. It just seemed like, I mean, it was the equivalent of like, you know, bringing a crying baby to a movie theater. It was just like, I would want to know, I'm fascinated by it. I would want to know more about the decision and would want to know if there was more to it than just look at me, because that's what it's being dragged as. And if that happens to be the case, then fine. But if there's more to it, I'd be very interested to know what made that person think that it was necessary.
It is funny, too, because not only like everybody talks about that it is blocking the view from the people behind her. But if you look at the person that she came with, he has to lean at least 4 inches to the side so her ploof can go onto his seat.
First of all, I love that you called it a ploof. I think that's the perfect way to describe that. Like, there is not a better word, and that's not even a real word. There's not a better invented description of that hat than a ploof. From here on out, that's what it is. But like, it reminded me of kind of like on an airplane. There are certain like understood rules of etiquette that exist on an airplane. And not everybody obeys them. Certainly, there are plenty of stories about that. But it's like, you know, it'd be the equivalent of like someone flipping their hair back over the seat in front of your movie screen, or like, you know, someone using both armrests or something like that. It just seemed like it seemed avoidable.
I like that you brought up that, you know, maybe it's an indicator of the type of people that she surrounds herself with. But I mean, she's a grown person. She has a brain. I just think a
very well insulated brain from that hat.
I think it was just being oblivious in the end. But the next topic sort of is led into by that one, because it also deals with attire. Hugh Grant getting pissy with this influencer who I have no love lost for influencers who get positions in media, but this woman was trying her best to have an interview with this guy. And he referenced more than likely the classic novel Vanity Fair. And then she was like, oh yeah, that's where the party is afterwards. And then you could tell at that moment, that was when he's like, fuck this woman. And then everything else that she asked.
Hugh Grant, you are a veteran of the Oscars, and you've been here a few times. What's your favorite thing about coming to the Oscars?
It's fascinating. It's the whole of humanity is here. It's Vanity Fair.
Oh, it's all about Vanity Fair. Yes, that's where we let loose and have a little bit of fun. What are you most excited to see tonight?
To see?
Yeah, well, I know that you probably watched a few of the movies. Are you excited to see anybody win? Do you have your hopes up for anyone?
No one in particular.
Okay, well, what are you wearing tonight then?
Just my suit.
Your suit? Who made your suit? You didn't make it.
I can't remember. My tailor.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Shout out to the tailor.
Yeah.
So tell me, what does it feel like to be in Glass Onion? It was such an amazing film. I really loved it. I love a thriller. How fun is it to shoot something like that?
Well, I'm barely in it. I'm in it for about 3 seconds.
Yeah, but still, you showed up and you had fun, right?
Almost.
Okay, all right. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you.
Yeah.
What a grumpy asshole. Like, I was like, oh my God. And the woman, to her credit, did not give up. She's like, I've got more questions, bitch. So you go ahead and brush me off as much as you want.
She's asking everybody the same questions, right? So like if she was better on her feet, she could maybe like switch up. But like it was just by the book. What are you wearing? Who's your date tonight? Who are you excited to see? You know, like he probably answered that question like 20 times before.
Well, he was like, wasn't he the only one that like seemed to be grumpy as fuck about it?
Grumpy as fuck about the questions. Yeah. He wasn't the only grumpy person in the audience, though. That happened when Jamie Lee Curtis won. But we'll get to that.
MC, you disagree? You're down with the grant?
No, not exactly. But in my career, I've probably interviewed close to like several hundred people, a good portion of which have been celebrities. And, you know, the trick to a good interview is to make it a conversation. Like you go in with preloaded questions, you go in with a list of questions. Hopefully you've done your research. Hopefully you know about the subject that you're going to be talking to. And usually when you go in with a list of questions, you start with the first one and then anything you had planned, like if you were going to ask him in a certain order, it just doesn't work. Like you have to adapt. You have to kind of like read the room. You have to schmooze kind of and have a conversation. My guess is that someone told her, there's Hugh Grant, go interview him. And she knew nothing of Hugh Grant, possibly other than having seen him in a movie. Whatever the first question was that she asked him, I don't remember what the first question was that she asked him. She was determined to ask the rest of that list of questions that were either given to her or in her head. And I think it could have been I think the awkwardness could have been avoided if she would have said something instead, you know, when she said, who are you wearing or what are you wearing? And he, you know, kind of played it off and was a little bit dodgy about it or whatever. She could have said something like, you're not really here. You don't care about the fashion. You like the art. Who's your favorite artist that's in the room tonight? Or, you know, what films are you hoping to see celebrated tonight? Or is there anyone that you hope they pay tribute to? Not necessarily those exact questions, but the list of questions she had was so prescribed and she just stuck to it and wasn't flexible about it. And that's no slight against her. I don't know anything about this girl. That might have been like her first celebrity interview or her first time ever seeing Hugh Grant and knowing who he was. I mean, it's not easy. My first interview was with Tony Hawk, and I got down to like a skateboarding competition that he was at and had no idea what was going on. And then his publicist is like, okay, yeah, we got you 5 minutes with Tony. So come right over here. And I was like, what? I just came here to watch skateboarding. And so I had to kind of on the fly interview Tony Hawk, and it was fucking awful. It was terrible. But you know, you practice and you do it more and you start realizing like what your technique is, I guess, and all that kind of bullshit. And I think she just kind of wasn't experienced. Now, could he have played along more? Sure. But I don't think you can always count on that. I don't know that he owed her anything. It's a shame that either one of them is being cast as at fault, because sometimes just interviews are just shitty. And I think that was just a bad interview.
Such a good answer, bruh.
I mean, right? Like
it's very political. I would like to hear some more fire and brimstone, if I'm being honest.
From me?
From anybody.
Look, a shitty guest is like, or a shitty interview subject is like Tom Cruise and Matt Lauer. When Tom Cruise hijacks the interview to talk about how psychiatry isn't a real science and all that whole thing, when it's a almost like a premeditated confrontation, that's definitely unfortunate, and that's happened to me plenty of times too. But like Hugh Grant, like he didn't have anything nominated or anything, right? He was just there. He was just, for all intents,
he was a presenter. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So he was a presenter. So for all intents and purposes, he was there to do a job. I don't know. I imagine he's been to at least a dozen Academy Awards before. So there's just this knowledge that you kind of have to go in with, that, you know, if the interview starts to go sideways, you kind of have to figure out how you're going to pivot. And I agree that he could have, you know, like I said, he could have played along. He could have made a joke or something about his tailor, or what were the other questions she asked about him? Oh, Glass Onion. Which I didn't even know he was in that. Was he really in that?
He's at the very beginning. He's, it's never said, but he's presumably Daniel Craig. I can't think of his name, like Fleur de Fleur or Floof de Floof. It's his like lover.
I'm kind of seeing it, but even still, like, yeah, when he said I was only in it for 3 seconds, maybe this is me with 20 years of hindsight and experience. My reaction probably would have been, that was the best 3 seconds of the movie, or something, just to like, I mean, you're there to kiss his ass, you know, like it was just, I don't know. She seemed like a young girl. She seemed like a very sweet, very kind, energetic girl. And it was just a shitty interview. I'm sorry I'm not more controversial for you, Lee, but like...
No, that's all right. That's all right. It just, I don't know. I see actions like that and I'm just like, you ungrateful prick. I don't care how many times you've been at the Oscars, you fucking dickhead. Let somebody else be there then.
To me, it's like the same thing of like sports figures having to answer questions right after a humiliating loss or something like that. And they're like, why is the coach so pissed off during the interview and stuff like that? It's like, because you're contractually obligated to stop and answer questions. And it's like, we don't need to know everything, you know?
Well, yeah, but they weren't hard hitting questions. It was just, the average length of those interviews is probably 60 seconds. Wouldn't you guess? 70?
Maybe. But he also answered honestly, like, who are you wearing? I don't know, my tailor. Like, I don't even know who I'm wearing. I'm wearing Target hoodie and maybe Levi jeans. I don't know. So like, he obviously reads, right? Referencing the 1848 Vanity Fair, but he doesn't look at his label before he puts on the jacket. And honestly, when she goes like, who are you wearing? Your eyes go to his suit and you go, it's not the best looking suit I've ever seen. He's like, I don't know. Really? Like, I just fucking put it on. Yeah.
And looked like a nice tux to me. All right. Enough about Hugh Grant. Jesus Christ. He hasn't been relevant. I will say this, MC, if you haven't watched, you should watch when he presents with Andie MacDowell, because you can totally tell he ad-libs a joke. And it was actually pretty funny.
We're actually here to do two things. The first is to raise awareness about the vital importance of using a good moisturizer. Andie has been wearing one every day for the last 29 years. I've never used one in my life. Still stunning, basically a scrotum.
I had no idea. That kind of paints him a little bit more as a dick, because if he is able to ad-lib a joke on stage, you know, maybe he could have been a little more forgiving to this poor girl.
Nice.
But again,
he is a dick.
I mean, maybe marginally a little bit more. I mean, but I think you have to remember, like, during these things, based on my experience, it's kind of like whoever you can get. Like, grab whoever you can get a soundbite for, I don't know what the show is now. I was going to say Talk Soup, but I don't even know what that was when it was on. But like, get a soundbite for the next day. And she did. She sure did. Not a great one, but, you know, that was talked about. And it's kind of just like, grab whoever's there and bring them on over. It's like a quantity over quality kind of thing. So asking this girl who looks like she's, you know, probably like 23, 24 or something like that to interview Hugh Grant, I wouldn't know much more about Hugh Grant than she probably did. So I think, you know, it was just a misfire.
Moving on. Tom Cruise was supposed to be there, apparently, and canceled last minute. No idea why. People have speculated that it could be because, you know, he's still working on the 2-part Mission Impossible 8. It could be because he read the tea leaves and it's pretty clear that Top Gun wasn't going to win any of the major prizes. How did we feel about the fact that really, honestly, there was none of the old guard was there? Tom Cruise wasn't there. Brad Pitt wasn't there. Meryl Streep wasn't there. Obviously, Jack Nicholson wasn't there. But none. How do we feel about that?
Steven Spielberg was there to get his ass licked by Jimmy Kimmel.
Did you notice he wasn't even in the front row, though?
Yeah, I did notice that. I don't know how the seating arrangements necessarily work with the Oscars. Jack Nicholson always seemed to get his own seat. We know through experience that you have to be invited to the Oscars. You have to be nominated first, and then the remaining seats are by invitation only. So it's not necessarily anybody could show up. Meryl Streep was not nominated for anything, so then therefore she would have to be invited, and perhaps she turned it down. Not a whole lot of the old guard was nominated this year.
Wait, Meryl Streep wasn't even there? She was the only classy, fancy actress I knew, and I name dropped her before, and she wasn't even there?
No.
Oh, awesome.
She was not.
Awesome.
None of my favorites were Amy Adams wasn't there. That's why I think the presenters were, for the young and hip audience, because I was going to just start naming presenters, but I didn't get a chance to really watch the show.
So you watched it, you just didn't hear it?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I was all over the place because I also have to update my spreadsheet for the Oscar award pool. Usually I don't get a seat on the couch. So I'm walking around, I'm snacking, or I'm stealing bites of my mom's lasagna. I thrive in chaos, and it's a very chaotic evening for me. Yeah. So Michael B. Jordan, I remember The Rock. I remember Margot Robbie, I'm sure was there to present.
She was up there with Morgan Freeman, who looks like Leap Day William from 30 Rock.
Yeah.
He was bald, and he had you can tell he's getting that thinned out old man face like Gene Hackman has, but he has a pencil thin mustache that was curling at the end, dude. It was crazy. Yeah. But you're lucky that
Wait, hold on. Give me one. It was funny because there was one person and my mom was like, who is that? I was like, that's Antonio Banderas. To me, he looked exactly the same. Nobody could recognize him in the household. Jennifer Connelly was beautiful as always. You know who I don't understand? And I'm going to fuck up her name. Cara Delevingne?
She's got a new show out where it's Cara fucks the world or something. It's literally her going around the world, testing people's sexuality and getting involved with them. It's fucking weird looking.
Huh. I didn't realize Selma Hayek got married and took the man's name. I was like, oh my gosh, Selma Hayek. And they're like, Selma Hayek Penault. But yeah, so it was a weird list of presenters, not necessarily A list, I would say, kind of B climbing up.
Since you didn't get to hear it, you didn't have to listen to the live performances, which were in keeping with your previous opinion about them, as well as the best song Oscar. God, they were bad. Lady Gaga was so out of key. Could you hear that?
Hold my hand, everything'll be okay. I heard from the heavens that clouds have been gray.
Oh, well, no, you couldn't hear anything.
I mean, I could because, of course, Lady Gaga got my niece and nephew's attention, so then the room quieted it down for their taste. But I didn't understand, one, the Everything Everywhere All at Once song, supremely chaotic. Every time an original song came on, I pointed out, I was like, this would never make my playlist. I will never grace my ears with this again unless we do an episode where we run through everything and try to find the top 5 best original songs. Even Not To, I was excited to see the performance. Not a great song. As I'm listening to the lyrics, I'm like, they're really just saying Not To over and over and over
again. You had me
like,
really hyped for that. And I was like, okay.
It was fun though, right? It was much more fun than the ballads.
Yeah.
It was more ballads and Not To.
Yeah.
So,
you pointed out that was the only one that had some fucking hop to it.
You know, like I really enjoyed when Eminem performed for 8 Mile for Lose Yourself because one, it was such an Oscar song of like uplifting and a good message and everything like that. And two, it was played on the radio like it was a popular song. Same with Shallow with Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. Like, or when you saw Frozen and you know Let It Go was going to win the Academy Award for Best Song. Like those are winners. Nothing this year stood out.
I like the Rihanna song. That's probably my favorite thing about Black Panther. Wakanda Forever.
Lift me up, hold me down.
Okay. Okay. Before we move on to the awards and everything like that, what I want from the Academy Awards is I want another Bob Hope. I want a host that just hosts, you know, like I don't want a late night talk show host who is going to give his like opening monologue and his cheesy jokes and kind of like brand his show onto the Oscars. I want somebody that you don't really see ever. They're not on your TV screen every single night. And I want their presence at the Oscars when it opens up to be like, oh my gosh, there they are again. There she is again. Like there's a bunch of actresses that have retired, namely like Cameron Diaz. I know Cameron Diaz isn't known for her hosting skills, but in the same instance, like if Cameron Diaz came out for the Academy Awards and was like, look, bitches, like here we go. Like I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, look at Cameron Diaz. She looks so great. Like I want her to come out with a whiskey glass, you know, with some hard liquor over rocks and just be like, clink, clink, let's get the show on the road. And it's like, that's what I want from the Oscars. I want just somebody to make me feel like every year this is going to go great and we're in capable hands.
Sometimes I think the only reason that they have the host is because it's the tradition of having a host. I don't have any beef with Kimmel. Quite honestly, after his opening monologue, you barely saw him the rest of the ceremony, which is kind of the way it's been for the last 5, 6, 7 years since they've been trying to move the show along more quickly. But I don't know. I think if they insist on having a host, they need to branch out. Kimmel's done it multiple times. Like when was the last time they had a host that had never done it? And I don't count last year, the 3Bs. I mean, like somebody like Awkwafina would be good. Andy Samberg, or like a B-list, C-list celebrity like Michael Sheen, somebody who has the charisma to carry it. I mean, fuck, dude, get Wesley Snipes. That would be fucking rad. I don't know. Have a Twitter contest where people can nominate and vote on potential hosts, but just change it the fuck up, for God's sakes.
They have to figure out the 3 things still that I pointed out in one of the Oscar fun facts. They have to figure out how much time they're going to give the host, how much time they're going to give the presenters, and how many commercials they actually need during the show. They take out half of the commercials. Nobody's going to notice except for the fact that the show is now 2.5 hours and not 3.5 hours.
I'm sad you guys didn't mention Kermit the Frog as a potential Oscar host. I would watch the shit out of that.
Kermit and Fozzie.
The Muppets again.
Bring some Fraggles. You could have... was it Woodward and Bernstein? The old guys?
Statler and Waldorf, but good try. Woodward and Bernstein were all the president's men.
I knew there was a W in there somewhere.
What if we just like forced the retirement of Tom Hanks and been like, this is all we want from you? He's such a pleasant guy, but I'm over the movies that he acts in.
Ugh, me too. All right. The first award of the night was Best Animated Feature, which went to Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Hey, man, Netflix and stop motion animation beating out the tired Pixar formula and the rest of the computer animated caca. And he sends out that call to all, join us for the animation revolution, give animation its respect and its due. I love it. I love that guy.
I like stop motion animation. When you were touting this Pinocchio film, I was like, you know what? I saw the 2019 Pinocchio film that was directed by Matteo Garrone. It was nominated for the David D. Donatello for Best Film. I really like that version of Pinocchio. So when another version came out, I was kind of Pinocchio'd out. I never saw the Tom Hanks version, but I'm pretty sure it kind of goes along with what I'm saying. We need to force him into retirement and make him our Academy Awards host, our new Bob Hope. My gosh, Tom Hanks would be a great Bob Hope. I'm going to shit on his acting career now, but he would be a great Bob Hope.
MC, did you see Pinocchio?
I didn't, but I will support practical effects, which I would consider stop motion to be largely practical effects every day of the week. CG's fun, but I'm still thinking about that giant costumed bear. You just can't computer generate something that awesome. I can't remember the last animated feature film that kind of like knocked my socks off. But, you know, every year when the holidays come around, watching Nightmare Before Christmas, it holds up. And it's just amazing to think of how those movies are made. The patience, the exactness, just the dedication. Like, that's a workhorse task. And so without having seen, I support the stop motion revolution or whatever you called it.
I'm glad that we're bringing this back. I want to jump forward. I want to talk about the best visual effects, which of course was Avatar: The Way of the Water. Shocker, not a shocker. But if best practical effects was an award, MC mentioned Pinocchio, but I'm going to let you guys think about it. Just think about who might have won this year, because as Elizabeth Banks, right, is up there shitting on practical effects with the man in the bear suit. I'm sitting and I'm being like, eventually, if you're good enough, I'm going to forget that's a man in a bear suit. I've seen all the behind the scenes of Jaws, and I still sometimes think it's a fucking shark. An even better example, I went to see the Broadway show of War Horse, where I'm watching 4 guys manipulate a wooden horse on the stage, and by the third act, I'm crying dying because this horse is stuck in barbed wire. So I get where Elizabeth Banks is coming from, but I'm sure the visual effects for Cocaine Bear are 2 months from being outdated. And I still have my jaw drop when 31 years ago I saw a fucking T-Rex rip through electrical wire in Jurassic Park. Practical effects will always hold up, like MC is saying, with Nightmare Before Christmas, and now with this Pinocchio, with Coraline, which we touted in our second episode ever of Spro and Lee Take on the Academy. With all that said, would we say Pinocchio is the best practical effects of the year, or was there another movie that maybe did it better? This is a category I want visual effects and practical effects to be separated.
Practical effects, you brought up a good point. It would be a lot of horror movies. I would want to see things like X and Pearl up there, especially X. Some of the kills in X were amazing. And that alligator, was that alligator or is it a crocodile or a fucking alligator? I can never get those confused. But the giant lizard that kills Brittany Snow, spoiler alert, in X, was that CGI or was that practical? Or a mix of both, like the Tyrannosaurus?
I don't know. Practical effects will always hold up so much better as long as you do them right.
Stop motion to me would win just because, like MC said, when they made Nightmare Before Christmas, you didn't get a whole lot of behind the scenes. I'm sure they were out there, but now you can follow Leica Studios on Instagram, the people that made Box Trolls and Coraline and Kubo and the Seven Strings, and you can just they just have a time-lapse video of the people manipulating. I don't know, it's kind of like playing with dolls, which I guess I like. I didn't think I liked that, but I do like it. Building everything by hand and then making the dolls do things and photographing. I don't know, man. I would give it to that. I would give it to Pinocchio.
MC?
I mean, my favorite movie of all time, is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from 1990. And that was all Henson's Creature Shops doing with the costumes, the animatronic masks. And you watch it and it still holds up. Like the movie itself, I could talk for hours about, the layers of that movie, but the disbelief that was suspended watching those actors in those suits do martial arts as the Ninja Turtles, it was a complete departure from reality. I believed I was watching these live action Ninja Turtles. And it was years before Jurassic Park. It was, I think, a year before Terminator 2. So like practical effects were, I don't know if you could say they were at their peak, but they were certainly at a specific, like there was a magnitude to them when they worked and when they worked well. And, talking about Del Toro, a lot of his movies like Hellboy, Pacific Rim, and all those movies which kind of get shit on, like those movies are fucking gorgeous. And they are obviously a combination of CG and practical effects. But when you see the costumes and the makeup and all that kind of stuff, he does it in a way where he doesn't rely on one or the other too much. And those movies are just beautiful.
We've been jumping to a different category that Lee and I talked about on our last episode with production design. And Avatar was being up for production design. And Lee makes a good point. Like, it's all computer graphics. It's all people with a green screen. Like, what about this is very design heavy? And when we're talking about practical effects and building sets, it came out to be All Quiet on the Western Front was what won, which surprised me, but I was also kind of happy about. But you want, like MC was just talking about I felt like I was watching the Ninja Turtles having fight scenes. And it's like, yeah, because you are. Like, you could tell your brain isn't being tricked. And you could sit back and relax and be like, this is exactly what I'm seeing. And so I'm glad the fact that All Quiet on the Western Front won Best Production Design, because it felt like you were sitting in sets.
I mean, you have to, too, consider Top Gun. I think when you're talking about practical effects, production design, cinematography, like it was no secret that movie was built up and basically promoted for like 2 years before it actually came out. All you heard was how much real flying and how many real mock dogfights and cameras mounted on the planes and stuff like that. I don't know exactly what category that would fall under, but it would have been probably way cheaper, way easier, way quicker to just CGI a jet, have it explode. But Tom Cruise fucking went for it, and it was incredible.
But then I'm thinking it gets dicey, because if you have a film that mixes practical and visual, where does that go? Can it be nominated for both? Can it not be nominated for either? You know what I'm saying?
Ninja Turtles 1990, fuck the world. That's what I'm saying.
So you brought up Top Gun Maverick, and where would it be for mounting cameras on the planes and everything like that? I would guess cinematography, Lee?
Yeah. But then I think what he was saying was a lot of that was practical. There was some CGI in Maverick, but It was all very practically, as far as effects are concerned, they would be called practical effects. I guess if flying a fighter jet is considered an effect.
Yeah, I don't know how to answer your question of like where you draw the line between practical.
It's getting muddy, yeah.
It is. I'll have to double check, but I think this was the first year where you could not be nominated for an Academy Award if your hiring practices didn't meet certain diversity criteria. And they could probably just say you cannot get a Best Practical Effects Award if you have this much CGI in your movie. So it could just be like a cutoff like that.
Well, here's something that we can do to knock a bit of this conversation out of the way. The big winner was Everything Everywhere All at Once. No movie has ever won all 4 acting categories, but this movie won 3 of them, which has been done before, but I think only like 3 times. So Michelle Yeoh won Best Actress. She got that late game push. Kiwi Kwan obviously won Best Supporting. His speech was great. God, it was so good. And then Michelle Yeoh kind of faltered because it was like she was poaching his speech for a second. Did you notice that? She's like, dreams do also come true. It's like, he said that already. Think of your own thing. But the one that it won that I do not agree with was Jamie Lee Curtis. And when they showed the clips, like when they do the nominees are, and then they go through them and they show you like a quick clip, the quick clip that they showed for Jamie Lee Curtis was immediately followed by Stephanie Sue's clip where she's like breaking down crying. She's just had this huge fight with her mom. And she's like, I love you, Mom, but being around you hurts too much. And I'm just like, oh my God.
Here are the nominees for performance by an actress in a supporting role.
Angela Bassett, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever.
I am queen of the most powerful nation in the world, and my entire family is gone. Have I not given everything?
Hong Chow, The Whale.
You listen to me. He doesn't need saving. In a few days, he's probably going to be dead. So what he needs is for you to leave him alone. I'm the only one who can help him. You understand me?
Carrie Condon, The Banshees of Inisherin.
Hey, what the hell's going on with you, me brother? You can't just all of a sudden stop being friends with a fella.
Why can't I?
Why can't you? Because it isn't nice.
Jamie Lee Curtis, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Now you may only see a pile of boring forms and numbers, but I see a story. So I can trace the ups and downs of your lives. And it does not look good. It does not look good.
Stephanie Hugh, Everything Everywhere All at Once.
I'm tired. I don't want to hurt anymore, and for some reason, when I'm with you, it just hurts the both of us. Just let me go.
And then they gave it to Jamie Lee Curtis. I don't get it. I mean, I'm not even bringing up the fact that Angela Bassett was the front runner. Like, she was kind of supposed to win that one. And Jamie Lee Curtis, who campaigns her balls off, comes from behind and takes it and then invokes her Nepo baby parents.
That's the thing, isn't it? That's what we were talking about all year. And like Angela Bassett being upset, I get it. Like, I would have loved for her to win. It's what we say all the time on Saltota. It's not who you want to win, it's who you can stomach. I could stomach Angela Bassett winning. I watched Women Talking. That movie and the performances in it knocked me on my ass. Any one of those women in that movie could have won for Women Talking, and I could stomach it. But Jamie Lee Curtis just doesn't make any sense. And I think it is kind of a smear on the Oscars that she won this year. You like her? Great. It's like she's a fixture in Hollywood. Awesome. Plan to give her an honorary Oscar at some point. But what she did in Everything Everywhere All at Once is not even her greatest work. And she doesn't even have a really great portfolio of work. I think my favorite performance of her is True Lies. She does really well in that movie. But it's just weird that if she was campaigned in to win this award, it was A24 doing it. And A24 they're very secretive. They don't really give interviews. It's kind of all about the art. But the fact that it seems like A24 really try to push this Jamie Lee Curtis win, it soured me on that studio a little bit.
I don't know if I could. I don't know. You don't.
This is campaigning. This is a campaign process.
But I think
it's lobbying.
That's not what I was. I don't think it was A24 pushing her. I think it was Jamie Lee Curtis, who's been in the business for 40 plus years, knows how to play the game.
But I feel like if you campaign for yourself, you get kind of like smeared in the presses like Melissa Leo did for The Fighter. Like she was pushing herself and they're like, look at this broad.
Well,
trying to get herself an award.
Whatever the case was, I still think, everybody other than her deserved that award. And it bums me out. I guess I thought we were past that whole they haven't gotten one, so we're going to give them one now. And I was hoping we were past that.
She's not even old. That's the thing is you usually give it to the 80-year-olds on their way out, about to kick the bucket. She was born in 58. I'm not going to do the math right now, but that doesn't seem too old.
Well, she's pushing 70. Yeah, she's not too old.
I guess what it is that Angela Bassett's catching a lot of shit because she was bummed out when she lost. Kind of, am I reading that right?
She looked really angry when they did not call her name.
Well,
she kept it together.
I don't know. I feel like that's forgivable and kind of expected when you're up for the biggest award in your field and you don't win. I would probably be pissed too. I'd like to think maybe, I'd have the grace to, I don't know, applaud the winner or whatever she didn't do, but who the fuck knows? I saw a picture where it looked like she had a scowl on her face or something. See, I did do research for this episode. I'm taking this shit seriously.
All right.
I saw a picture where she had a scowl on her face, and it was a moment in time that seemed to be captured and then redistributed around the internet. Who knows what happened afterward, if she went up and congratulated her or if, the rest of her reaction was a little more positive or whatever. I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I can empathize because like you said, she probably started, believing what people were saying that she was going to win. And then this swerve was a total bummer. I think Spro said that, Jamie Lee Curtis, you like her, but did she deserve to win? I'm definitely not qualified to say that, but I did enjoy the genuineness of her reaction was endearing at the very, very least. I forget what she said, but she was like, no shit, or shut up, or something like that. And it felt like a genuine surprise, which lots of times these things aren't.
And actually, when it came to my Academy Award pool, the top 6 prizes are based off of Vegas odds. And pretty much the 2 people that won first and second place guessed Jamie Lee Curtis. And because her odds were pretty far off, they pretty much sealed the deal right there. And I think it was the second award of the evening. But you're right. I genuinely like her reaction as well with the shut up. It seemed like she didn't know it was coming, which means that she is a pretty good speech giver because we have seen some really bad speech givers when they didn't expect it, even when they did expect it. Brendan Fraser was a hot mess giving his acceptance speech. I love it.
Yes, he was.
That was tough. But yeah, I hope that she, like I said, I like Jamie Lee Curtis. She seems like a pleasant individual. And so I don't want to say that she campaigned to ruin Angela Bassett's night, who I also think is a very cool, hip lady that I would like to sit at a dinner table with. But yeah, no, it was just a weird moment.
She's basically been the liaison for that film since it came out. Everything Everywhere All at Once came out 1 year and 1 day before the Oscars. And in that time, it's never really left the public conversation. A lot of that had to do with Jamie Lee Curtis talking about it all the time.
Still doesn't explain why What's-Her-Face didn't win.
Yeah, What's-Her-Face totally should have won. I love What's-Her-Face.
Stephanie Sue.
Yeah, she was great. She didn't win because she doesn't have, 40 plus years under her belt in the industry. She gave a better performance in a far more interesting role. Hong Chow was fantastic in The Whale. Kerry Condon was fantastic in Banshees of Inisherin. And Angela Bassett's always great. I think she's a little over the top in Wakanda Forever, but that's the same thing right there. How old is Angela Bassett? Why wasn't this her opportunity? And she wasn't getting dragged on the internet, by the way. There were hundreds of posts immediately following where people are like, bullshit. I don't know. But just the fact that the man who played Short Round and Data has an Oscar now on his mantle and his story, just wonderful.
Not to bounce around even more, but They obviously expected Everything Everywhere All at Once to win Best Picture because Harrison Ford is the one presenting it. And then you get that sweet moment where Short Round and Andie are back again. And he's like jumping all over him and giving him a kiss and everything like that. Like, I love that moment at the Oscars, but in the same instance, I was like, why did that moment happen?
That felt planned.
Yeah. And you know that the Oscars don't really know because they fucked up their entire broadcast, thinking that they were going to give Chadwick Boseman a posthumous award in Black Panther, instead giving it to Anthony Hopkins for The Father, and then be like, that's it. That's all, folks. So I'll see you later. You know, goodbye.
It was for Ma Rainey, not Black Panther.
Oh, for Ma Rainey. Okay.
Jesus, you call yourself a movie podcaster. All right, Spro, let's let you shine and let's talk about Best Original Screenplay and Best Adapted Screenplay.
I did predict the Best Original Screenplay a little bit with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I said that it was a very complicated script that was going to take a lot of writes and rewrites and trying to figure out where the holes were. I'm sure there was a whole lot of weed smoking when they were writing the script that was just bonkers and off the wall. But good for them. It's always easier if you find a writing partner that you can bounce ideas off and nobody gets their feelings hurt. Like, you are a cut above the rest because you already got somebody that's like an editor in your corner. I have a writing partner. His name is Dash, and I appreciate him to the moon and back when we work on our projects together. When we're talking about Best Adapted Screenplay, I didn't see Women Talking until we were done with our pre-show for the Oscars. I loved this movie, and I wish that I saw it to talk about earlier. I loved the cast. I think that Best Casting should be an award category, and I would give it to John Buchan and Jason Knight for this because they put together this cast with Rooney Mara and Jessie Buckley and Claire Foy. Like, just everybody in this movie was casted brilliantly. The writing was so simple, yet elegant, yet amazing and on point. And the fact that she is adapting it not from a previous movie, not from her own novel or anything like that, from somebody else's work, and then putting it up on the screen as well as they did. Just even like the little shots that you get, like, it's part of the editing process, I know, but when somebody is talking and then they just give you a little glimpse of the feeling that they're talking about or the situation that they're talking about. But really the whole movie is a group of Mennonite women talking in a barn, and to make it as interesting and as thrilling as it was, I absolutely love the script, and I applaud Sarah Polley for Women Talking. That's the directing snub that I would have said had I watched the movie before our last show. Sarah Polley probably should have been up there, at least over Steven Spielberg.
Wait, is this the same Sarah Polley from Dawn of the Dead?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, that's awesome. Good for her.
Yeah, I know. It's like she went up there to accept her award. I was like, I know her.
Yeah, good for her. That movie fucking rules. Did that win any Academy Awards? Probably won like all of them, right? No.
It could have won Best Practical Effects. Zombie movies probably are rife for that.
Best Original Screenplay, I really still wish had gone to Martin McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin. It was the only award that I think they had a chance of winning. And I see your argument about Everything Everywhere All at Once, but just from a writing standpoint, the dialogue, there's only 4 characters. I mean, there's more than 4, obviously. You've got the policeman and the barkeeps, but by and large, there's 4 characters, and even the bit parts are fleshed out and interesting feeling characters. Everything Everywhere All at Once is kind of like you said. It's just like a bunch of dudes that got high and were like, what if we fucking? But I don't know. Banshees feels just so much more deliberate, whereas Everything Everywhere All at Once, if you peel back everything from Everything Everywhere All at Once, it's kind of just a story about a mom and her daughter who don't get along because of generation gap and, differing beliefs. But Banshees is so much more complex. I don't know. I really wanted Banshees to win. And it brings up another funny point. Banshees won nothing. Tar won nothing. The Fabelmans won nothing. Elvis won nothing. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it was all shut out. The Banshees of Inisherin wasn't even nominated for the Writers Guild Awards for Original Screenplay.
What?
The nominations for that was Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Fabelmans, The Menu, Nope, and Tar.
All right. I like The Menu. I don't know if I would nominate it for an award.
No. I would not either. But there's Nope. Like, you're wondering why Nope wasn't up for anything. And then the adapted screenplay was Black Panther, Glass Onion, She Said, Top Gun, and Women Talking. And then Women Talking.
There's a nomination for She Said. I can't believe that didn't get any nominations. All right. Are there any other of these awards we want to talk about? I was surprised All Quiet took 4 awards. MC, you want to sound off on Top Gun did take one.
I do want to throw out, though, before we give MC the Top Gun award to talk about, with my Academy Award pool, everybody for short film animated went with The Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse. And only one person did not, and that was MC. MC, do you remember what your pick was for that movie?
Yeah, of course I remember. It was... I don't remember.
No, you picked My Year of Dicks.
Oh, yeah, that sounds right. I mean, Spro, I have to be honest with you. There were quite a few categories where I was just throwing darts at a board.
All right, so Top Gun wins 1 award, wins Best Sound.
I don't disagree. Like, I think when I'm listening to you guys talk, it's very, very endearing to me because this is something that the Academy Awards are something that I'm not particularly passionate about. I've been pretty clear about that. But hearing the passion that you guys have, whether it manifests as like, you know, you're complimenting these movies and saying you agree with the picks, or you're like vehemently disagreeing based on, you know, your passion for one of the other picks, like, it's very, very inviting. It's a very, very like just because I don't enjoy it doesn't mean I don't enjoy hearing you enjoy it. And one of the things that made me think of was how it seems to me sometimes like the Academy Awards, they take out the emotional experience of a movie. Like, obviously some of the more, you know, high profile movies that have won in the past, like Forrest Gump and like, I don't know, Titanic or whatever, these epic movies that have emotional elements to them and create an emotional, visceral response from, you know, the audience and stuff like that. But when I think of Top Gun, I know I picked Top Gun to win Best Picture, and I kind of did that just as like a goof, but also like, yeah, why not? I saw Top Gun in the theater with my mom opening weekend. When I was little, we used to watch Top Gun all the time, the original one. And sitting in that movie theater with her, it was more than watching a movie. It was sharing this experience. And I realized that that's not something that the Academy can logistically take into consideration. The fact that this movie may have meant something specific to a certain person or a certain group of people or whatever. And so, yeah, let's give it the award. I get that. But I think the emotional relevance of Top Gun to me and to the people that experienced it the way I did was just very, very unique and poignant. I mean, I cried at the end. Like, I cried, you know, him and Rooster are trying to escape from the country that's definitely not Russia. And they get in the Tomcat and stuff like that. And it's just like, it did everything a movie is supposed to do. Like, it legitimately did everything a movie was supposed to do. It was exciting. It was entertaining. It made me forget everything else that was going on in the world. And it created a memory for me. And I feel like, you know, that's kind of where I have the disconnect with the Oscars, is the movies that you guys are talking about are technically proficient, masterfully written, masterfully acted. But for people like me, the emotional connection just maybe isn't there. And that's exactly why I'm not qualified to even be a guest on this podcast. That's kind of my take. I didn't know Top Gun won an award, but Best Sound, I mean, yeah, those jet engines were fat.
Well, that's part. So Lee did not like Top Gun. Lee was not enamored with Top Gun. And I was like, but did you see it in the theater? And he gave 2 responses that kind of make sense. One, he didn't see it in the theater. And I think with a movie like this, you have to let the jet engines rumble your ass cheeks. And then the second thing is he didn't really like the first one. And I was like, well, I think the awesome thing about Top Gun Maverick was it gave you the same feelings that you got when watching the original. Like, you got that nostalgic feeling and it didn't let you down. Where if you don't like the first one, I can't really hedge my bets that you're going to necessarily like the second one.
You know, same thing with Ninja Turtles. I realized that Ninja Turtles is not, you know, the most lauded or proficient piece of cinema of all time, but emotionally, that's where it gets me. And that's why, I'm able to list the favorite movies that I have, so distinctly, is because they're all tied to these moments in my life, these emotional moments in my life. And Top Gun, there was the tiniest chance in my head. I was imagining it like if you were like booking a wrestling show or something like that. Like if you really wanted to surprise and swerve people, like when Hulk Hogan turned on the Macho Man, it would have been giving Best Picture to Top Gun. And I'm not saying that that's what they should have done, but it would have been such a justifiable twist, I think, that could have, done what you guys were talking about the last time we chatted, which was kind of open the door to a broader audience. My point was that I thought Top Gun itself was an event. Top Gun Maverick was an event that happened to us at probably the most opportune time as we were coming out of COVID, as movie theaters were beginning to reopen. And it was the absolute perfect vehicle to kind of usher in that we're getting back to normal thing and remember how awesome movies used to be. And I think that maybe the Oscars isn't a place to celebrate that, but that's what that movie did.
I think if there hadn't been such an avalanche for Everything Ever All, God, I hate saying the title of that movie. That movie, I genuinely think Top Gun would have had a chance. I mean, every time it was mentioned, there was like audible, like,
people just loved it. And it was like, again, it was just such an emotional event because it was just a right place, right time, well executed piece of movie history. And it'll be awesome the next time I watch it, regardless of how many awards it's won.
Oh, well, I'm glad you liked it. I just found it very formulaic. Like, okay, they're going to talk about the mission
dude.
the entire
It was
the entire time, and then they're going to go on the mission. The first part where I was like, okay, this is cool, was when they're on foot. That was the first part where I was like, okay, this is new. This is fun. And then when they're like, okay, let's move, don't run. And then, okay, we should probably start running. That was where I was like, okay, this is interesting. This is new. I mean, come on. They even went back to the beach, for Christ's sake. And the scenes with Jennifer Connelly, that whole storyline with Jennifer Connelly, just scratched that whole thing. And it was the only reason they did it was so that it was Rooster and her that he was possibly going to not come back to if he died on that mission.
I mean, I
love Jennifer Connelly.
I mean, you're saying it was formulaic and automatically that has a negative connotation. I mean, what's wrong with a movie formula? It's comforting. It's less to think about and it gives you more time to concentrate on or enjoy or immerse yourself in those things that you guys were just talking about, the sound, the visuals, the cinematography, the effects, the performances, all that stuff. Like formulaic movies are kind of like, it's like when you learn to read, like when you develop the automaticity to be able to read a page without thinking about it, then your brain can do other stuff. Like your brain can imagine the descriptions that you're reading and can imagine the characters. And as you buckle in for a movie like Top Gun, which absolutely was formulaic, you kind of are like, I know exactly what to expect. And if this movie delivers, I will have enjoyed it. And not only did it deliver, it in my opinion, and I think Spro's opinion, over-delivered.
Call me jaded, I guess.
Agree to disagree. Agree to disagree.
When we were texting and you were like, you ready for Top Gun to win Best Picture? When you said that, I was like, I think I even texted you like, fucking stranger things have happened. And if Everything Everywhere hadn't been sweeping all night long, it would have stayed in my mind that you said that.
I mean, I hoped against hope, I suppose. It would have been cool. And
a lot of people agreed with you.
Agree to disagree. Just because I don't want you to sit at my table doesn't mean I don't want you to eat, brother. I think that was paraphrased from a Tupac quote, I think. So
I like how Lee said awe, but I don't think it doesn't sound like a huge compliment. Keeping it on Top Gun and Tom Cruise and everything like that, I have already suggested 2 new categories of practical effects and best casting. You want to talk about best stunts.
Who, me?
Yes, you.
Oh, well, you bring it up probably more frequently than I do. I'm just fully in support of it. My background includes a lot of martial arts and gymnastics and stuff like that. A lot of my friends went on to become stuntmen, and it's just a profession that if you're going to validate and reward, some of the method acting choices that we've seen, like McConaughey losing all that weight and Jared Leto going through his transformation and Raging Bull and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's essentially what a stunt is putting your life and your body on the line for the sake of the movie, or the character or the art or whatever you want to call it. Stunts are incredibly dangerous, and it just seems like such an obvious award. And I know that it's been reserved for like the Spike TV Awards or like the Man Show Awards or whatever, but I think that's a disservice to the industry of these people who, I don't recall any actor ever, and maybe you can correct me, but ever having died from like acting wrong, but plenty of stuntmen and, stunt women, stunt people have injured themselves, sacrificed their careers and even their lives, like, for the movies. So why wouldn't that be rewarded at the biggest celebration of movies every year?
And then you would get action movies being mentioned at the Oscars.
Sure. I mean, unless, I don't know if there were many stunts in the Banshees of Inisherin, but, I mean,
I don't think so.
Movies like if I don't want to tip my hand too much, but if you're asking me for at least like one of the best stunts of all time, it's funny because it's Jamie Lee Curtis from True Lies hanging out of the limo. That whole sequence when it goes off the bridge and she's out the sunroof and he picks her up on the helicopter and stuff like that. You think about scenes like that, and on screen that all took maybe 30 seconds or something. But you have to consider that you only get, for most of these sequences and stunts and fights and explosions and all that kind of stuff, you get literally one shot to do it. I mean, you can't blow up. What was the thing that Christopher Nolan just did? Like he built an atom bomb or something like that. Like, you can't do that more than you can't. Yeah, you can't do that more than once. Like, you have to appreciate the fine art that is stunts and choreography and, the exactness with which it's just executed.
I think about Michael Bay in Bad Boys 2 and the driving sequence there,
oh yeah,
and how they're saying that they were flipping real cars at them, not a scratch got onto I think it was a Ferrari that they were driving.
For that whole sequence, they built this giant like steel frame around the Ferrari. Like, this is the other thing about stunts too, is how innovative they are, right? Like, for that sequence, nothing like that had ever been done before. And so there was no precedent. It wasn't like, oh yeah, let's just do what Spielberg did in Close Encounters. We'll just we'll do it a little bigger. Like, he had to visualize, conceptualize, invent, and then execute this stunt by building this crazy looking rig to wrap around a Ferrari so that it would feel more real. Then he had to get all kinds of people on set who were experts at how the car was going to roll and how the car was going to bounce and things like that. And it's just if you can appreciate the screenplay that goes into making a movie, if you can appreciate the direction, best director, best screenplay, best sound design, best cinematography, all that, like, stunts in movies, when they're done right and when they're done effectively, are just as, if not more, intricate and, essential to the overall experience.
Tarantino is a big proponent of stuntmen. He's actually the only stunt person I can name is Zoe Bell, because he's not only used her as Uma Thurman's double in the Kill Bill films, but then he brought her in and started casting her in movies, starting with Death Proof. Death Proof is where she plays herself, and they take that car out into the countryside and she plays ship's mast, where she goes out on the hood of the car. And hey, I would be all for a stunt category. Casting also interests me, but if we're talking about stunts, our friend of the show, Emily, has worn many hats, but at one time she taught stage combat, and I asked her once upon a time, what she thought should be the Oscar equivalent of a stunt award. And she said, well, the Emmys do give stunt awards, and they give it for outstanding stunt performance, which I imagine would go to an individual, and then outstanding stunt coordination or stunt team, which would then be the the veterans that are coaching everybody through their stunts.
a stunt team is like Jackie Chan is the classic example of a stunt team. Like Jackie Chan's stunt team, you see a lot of the same like actors and background guys show up in his movies because they're all on his stunt team. They're like his hand-picked dudes. And that's another component of movies that shows kind of just how carefully these things are planned. You know, like Jackie Chan's a perfect example. Didn't they give him like an honorary Oscar not too long ago? I feel like that happened. And that was awesome. Like I remember being like really, really happy for that. Because again, like for as difficult as it must have been for, I keep going back to McConaughey, but for as difficult and as arduous and as, you know, just completely miserable as it must have been for him to lose all that weight and to, you know, get his body in such a frail state, like he did it for the same reason that Jackie Chan jumped across buildings without a net. He did it to entertain the people and to make the people the audience believe that what they were seeing had stakes to it. And so I think it doesn't sound like any of us disagree with the idea that there should be a stunt award. I'm just coming from a place of passion for, you know, based on my life experience and the friends that I have and the, you know, cool stuff I've gotten to see and just a love for the effort and the genius that goes into creating and executing these really, really unbelievable stunts.
Yep. And in 2016, he was honored with the honorary Oscar award.
That was when I was off the Oscars. That's why I didn't remember that. I was no longer an Oscar viewer in those years.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie Chan is an icon.
But I'm surprised, like Tom Cruise is another one, right? Doing his own stunts.
Tom Cruise's stunts are fucking incredible. Like the video of him, there were 2 videos that came out probably around Christmas when Top Gun started streaming on Paramount. He announced it by jumping out of a plane and skydiving and like just all nonchalantly, like as he's falling out of a fucking plane, he's like, yeah, check out my movie Top Gun on Paramount Plus. Isn't this great? I'm so glad you all came to see it. I hope you liked it. Like while he's falling out of a plane. And then like a week after that, it was that video of him doing the motorcycle jump off of the ramp over the cliff like 8 times. And the first one was fine. Like that's the thing I remember from that video was like, yeah, that first one looked pretty good. But he was like, no, I'm going to do it 7 more times. Like he can demand whatever he wants. And he's an adrenaline junkie who he can demand to make a movie in space. I mean, I would.
Well, we've talked about a couple of awards. I had one more I wanted to float. And, you know, if no one wants to bite, then that's fine. Should there be more awards for performances? Is 4 not enough?
I kind of like that there's only 4 because it's like, okay. I don't know. For some reason, 4 is just a very neat number. Although I am curious to know like what determines the what qualifies you as a supporting actor or actress? Like how supporting do you have to be to get that role? You know, was it Anthony Hopkins for Hannibal Lecter? Like was in the movie for 10 minutes? You know,
not quite that short, but yeah, he was.
Something
he and
like
Marlon
that.
Brando for The Godfather. Those are big examples of people that were probably supporting. There's a lot of category shuffling.
I realize that there's no like hard, fast answer. Like, oh, you have to clock 15 minutes of screen time to be considered. I realize that it's more nuanced than that, but it's always kind of made me wonder, like, how do they like best actor? I get it's usually like the top billing on the credits and all that, you know, the major name, whoever's in the movie. I get that. But I'm always curious to know, like, how do they zero in on the supporting actors and actresses who are gonna make the cut?
Well, to answer both the questions that got thrown out, MC first, the actors and the supporting actors and everything, the top billing doesn't always have to be the case. Case in point, this year with Michelle Williams, she was pretty much a supporting actor in The Fabelmans, but she thought it was her year to win Best Actress. And so she asked for her name and for the studio to campaign her in that light. So then she was up for the Best Actress award. So it's very much where they think you're going to win and where they can put you and make a good argument for it. Same thing that happened with Viola Davis back in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. That was a Chadwick Boseman film, and she was in it for probably as much as Anthony Hopkins was in as Hannibal for Silence of the Lambs, and she was placed for Best Actress that year.
See, that kind of sours it a little bit for me because it's like,
doesn't it?
The way you said it was like, well, I'm going to go for this because I think I can win this. You know, like it's kind of like running for student council president versus running for student council treasurer or something like that.
It's like you're a secretary, bro.
Yeah, you know, like that kind of sours me a little bit on it. But I
you don't really want to know how the sausage is made. But to answer Lee's question, I do want to I would like best newcomer as an award. I would like to see like kids, you know, be up for that. And we've touted maybe best cameo. That's a little niche, a little nuanced, but then also maybe best voice work or best put VR on a performance. I was gonna say put on green suit or dots on your face, or because I really think that Zoe Saldana is amazing in these Avatar films, and I would appreciate if she got more recognition for her work in them.
Yeah, I just always go back to Lord of the Rings. And Andy Serkis as Gollum. I mean, and then he's gone on to he did the Planet of the Apes reboot. I
was going to say Caesar. I loved Caesar, probably even more so than his Gollum performances.
Oh, boy, it's got to be pretty good. I haven't watched those movies. Yeah, I don't know.
Before we say goodbye, wrap up and say goodbye to our guests, I do want to tout, we would love to do a best stunt episode. If you want to gather, if any of your friends want to gather along and Lee and I can just take a seat back and listen to you guys talk about stunts. I think that would be a fantastic episode.
Well, I made that all up, so you're putting me on the spot. No, I'm just kidding. No, I mean, it's making me feel really old actually right now because, you know, all these guys I've known for decades, and they've done everything from like Power Rangers. I think a couple of them worked on like Lethal Weapon 4 or something like that. I don't know. I'll have to look into it. But anytime you guys want to talk about stunts and action sequences and things like that, I can certainly provide a list of who I would nominate and, you know, for your consideration. That's what they say, right?
Yeah,
FYC.
You got that.
Yep.
You got that.
Nailed it. You guys, I'm learning. I'm head over heels into this shit now.
Well, first of all, thank you, MC, for coming on. It's nice to have your opinion, and you're always welcome on the show, regardless of how you feel about your own contributions.
I appreciate that.
You can hear MC on not only Second Chance Cinema with Spro, but you can also hear MC on the Mount Rushmore podcast that he does with Spro, with Rudy, and with a gentleman named Jeremy, where they talk about the best of the best in pop culture. For us here at Spro and Lee Take on the Academy, Spro and I have an interview coming up with filmmakers Randall Miller and Jody Savin and a couple other folks from their new movie Coffee Wars, which will be out on VOD the 21st of March, and we will be talking to them shortly thereafter. That'll be coming next. Keep your eyes peeled for that. That's all I got. Spro, you got anything?
Nope, you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah, I fucking nailed it. Huh?
Oh, what a great kicker.
All right. Well, I'm Lee.
I'm Spro.
I'm MC. Hey.
And we hope to see you sitting front row when the envelopes are read.
And the Oscar goes to Everything, Everywhere, All at Once.
Nominated for 11 Academy Awards, Everything Everywhere All at Once won 7 Oscars tonight for actor in a supporting role, actress in a supporting role, original screenplay, film editing, directing, actress in a leading role, and Best Picture.
This feels incredible. There is no movie without our brilliant and big-hearted cast and crew, but not just these beautiful souls here. Also up there and in Little Tokyo, we see you. So this award is ours. I never thought I would get to say this, so I say it with one voice with all these people, which is no person is more important than prophets.
Have a great night, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everyone have a good night. Thank you for watching.